Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the April 24th council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestrea.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Mrs. Teresi.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Perfect, thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes from our Committee of the Whole meeting on April 10th, 2023. I hope everyone has had time to read these minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mr. Monaco. Are there
Mrs. Smith,
any changes?
I do have some changes which I submitted Mrs. Fagan.
To Mrs. Finney, okay. Or
So
to Mrs.
we should
Fagan.
approve them as the changes submitted to Mrs. Fagan, please.
Okay, did you want to say the changes, or?
We don't need, I gave them to her,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, perfect.
Just something she wasn't in the minutes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Are there any other changes or deletions to these minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These minutes have been approved. Next is the minutes from our council meeting of April 10th. I hope everyone has had time to read those minutes over. Are these minutes, is there any motion to approve the minutes? Mrs. Teresi, and second by Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any suggested changes or deletions to these minutes?
Yeah, I gave them to Mrs. Fagan,
Okay,
so.
thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These minutes have now been approved as written. At this time, does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? Okay. We will now move to reports of officers, beginning with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. Months ago, residents received information from Dominion Gas regarding a move-out meter project. Dominion plans to relocate gas meters from inside homes and businesses to the outside, allowing them easier access to the meters. A Dominion employee will attempt to contact you 24 to 48 hours prior to this work to coordinate the project schedule. So keep an eye out for that. Yard restoration, including grading and seeding. If a sidewalk or driveway is damaged or removed during construction, Dominion will replace them according to our specifications and standards. So if you have any questions, you can call Dominion directly. And the number is 800-544-5768. Little update on the Mayfield Road project. The project should be completed by the end of next week, except for the traffic signal loop detectors. Those were cut during the replacement, and those need to be fixed. And that is scheduled kind of as a subcontractor can get free to do it, but that shouldn't take too long to do. And lastly, Fraser Behavioral Health moved to its new office on Landerbrook Drive last year. They focus on behavioral techniques and intervention strategies for children and adults with autism, ADD, and other developmental conditions. Certainly, the school district and families benefit immensely from the services they provide. So I would like to present them with a proclamation. Madam Chair, I'm going to head over to the podium.
Okay.
So we have members from Fraser here. Do you guys want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Leslie Spear. I'm the clinical director.
I'm Lauren Jeanette. I'm a speech therapist.
And I'm Julia Haffey. I'm the office manager.
All right, and I will read the proclamation. Whereas the City of Mayfield Heights recognizes the month of April as Autism Acceptance Month, the multidisciplinary team of Fraser Behavioral Health has been continuously dedicated to practicing the highest standards of care and commitment in their work for the neurodiverse community of Mayfield Heights. And whereas Fraser Behavioral Health staff has provided individualized therapy for children and adults with behavioral, physical, social, communication, and sensory issues to help neurodiverse individuals live the best life possible. And whereas, since its founding in 2019, Fraser Behavioral Health provided services to hundreds of families and individuals in and around the Mayfield Heights community. And whereas, Fraser Behavioral Health and its employees remain committed to continuing their exemplary service and care for neurodiverse individuals and families throughout Ohio. Now therefore, I, Anthony DeSico, under the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Mayfield Heights, state of Ohio, and on behalf of the entire city council and administration, do hereby extend our appreciation to the efforts of Fraser Behavioral Health. Signed today, April 24th, 2023. Congratulations.
Why doesn't Sean take a picture of all of them?
Right.
Sean, why don't you take the picture? How silly. Like, hello? Got every employee in the audience.
Thermostat.
Congratulations. Are there any questions for the mayor? Mrs. Tressi?
Where is Fraser located?
Where's
Where's the office?
The office is in our corporate park. The exact address is 5885 Landerbrook.
Vanderbrook.
Landerbrook. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we will move to Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Actually, I do have a short report tonight. Saturday afternoon, Councilmember DeJohn sent me an email regarding committee meetings and copied all of council on it. And I told him that I was out of town, didn't have a chance to look at it, and I haven't had a chance to do a written report, but I'd like to just give a verbal one tonight so that you know where I'm coming from. I asked Shanisha to place at council's places the only reference in our codified ordinances to committee meetings, and that's at your places now. And what I can tell you is the ordinances outline what matters are referred to committees, and nothing else can be referred. The president can refer any matter at any time to any of the committees. No committee recommendation is necessary for a full council to consider. In other words, although it does say you can have a committee recommendation, that's not necessary for council to consider any piece of legislation. And finally, council can vote on a matter at any time. It has to wait, does not have to wait for a committee to have a hearing or to consider a matter or anything. As long as the matter has been introduced to council properly and is placed on third reading, council can always consider it. So that's, I'll do a written report, but that's the gist of it. Any questions?
Mr. DeJohn?
No questions. So if this council wants to change it, we can change it by a vote, right?
By a majority vote of four,
yes,
yes,
yes.
you can, that's in the codified ordinances, you can change that. You can make it 3 members, you can make it, it's got to be a recommendation, you can do whatever you want.
Correct. And Mrs. Fagan said that she has some cities that, what exactly did you say? She told me.
I had just mentioned that in a prior life, I was involved with the city, that once it was in committee, it took a certain number of council reps voting to pull it off out of committee and onto the main council agenda.
There you go. So we may want to consider something like that also.
For tabled items?
No, for anything that goes to committee,
Okay.
any of the committees we have.
We can look into that if that's doable.
So we can add 3 members, so there's always,
There's a number of different things you can do, right? The thing I
Correct.
would caution is you don't want a committee to hold up legislation that the rest of council wants to consider.
correct, and that's why I like it the way it is now. But most of the council, at least some of the people on council thought it had to be both people recommending it to council. And that's why I talked to Mr. Murphy about that.
Yeah, it does not.
All right, thank you. All right, Director of Finance, Mrs. Fagan.
Thank you. I do have a report this evening also. April for the Finance Department means it's audit season. I think everybody on council was already copied on the police and fire pension audit that was completed. The Auditor of State sent out their finding on that, their report on that, and there was no issues whatsoever. We are in the process of our annual audit right now. Normally, it's done in stages, so the initial field work's been completed. The second team is out converting our cash basis statements to modified accrual. When they're done, the audit team comes out and finalizes everything, and we'll issue a report at that time, and it'll be shared with council at that time. I also wanted to share some good news. Council has, back in February, granted the authority for us to roll over our debt for the new Aquatic and Community Center. 2 weeks ago, we had our bond note rating meeting with Moody's Investment Services. So after a lot of in-depth questions, a lot of research on their part, they did uphold our AA2 on the bonds, which is a very good rating. If you remember, back in 2021, they gave us a rating of AA2 on our bonds at that time, and that is the highest rating that the city has ever received. They stated specifically that the credit profile is solid and that we have a stable and healthy governmental fund balance. They noted our city demonstrates good transparency. And the last thing I wanted to mention on that too is because of a change in underwriters on this, there will be a retail portion of the sale of those bonds. And I have received phone calls in the past from residents that wanted to invest in this. So we will get that information on the website for anybody who would like to invest in the purchase of the bonds. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Fagan. Are there any questions? Okay. Moving to reports of committees, commissions, and boards, we will begin with the Building Committee and Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Madam President. The Building Committee has not met, so therefore I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I do not have any report this evening.
Thank you. We'll move to Legislative Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Okay. Public Works and Service, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the mayor has stated, work is being completed on Mayfield Road for spot and joint repairs, and I think they're almost all completed, if not completed. The committee does have 2 motions on the agenda this evening. One is to go out for bid on the resurfacing part of our road program, and the other is to go out to bid on the 2023 sidewalk program. The sidewalk program does need an amendment, however, but I think that was changed before tonight's meeting, so we should be okay. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Balestrea? Mr. DeJohn?
I have a couple questions. So first, the sidewalk program, since it wasn't done last year, shouldn't it be $400,000?
That's the change.
Okay, and that's the change.
You should have that on the new agenda that was on the table this evening.
Okay.
I called that in this afternoon, so.
And there's, is there any way that we can get these bids out faster? We're very late this year, and we really need to start on this probably by the end of the year to get it to us by an adequate time so we can get these bids, so. I mean,
Can I
if there's
address that?
anything we
I
could do,
talked
I'd
to
appreciate it.
Mr. Balestrea yesterday, and we're
Oh.
talking about, at the end of the year, having these public works and service meetings earlier so that they're on time. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, if you remember, Mr. John, the meetings were held earlier or I should say later in 2022, if you go back and review the minutes. But since we lost 2 directors and city engineers, that prolonged it. I was trying to get a hold of a city engineer for 3 weeks to get things done. So that prolonged it as well. So now we're into, May bidding. Things will get started late, but I think we'll still have enough time to complete the program this year. But going forward, yes, I'll definitely have meetings
Okay,
before
thank
the
you.
end of the year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Belstrade. Next, we will move to Recreation and Parks, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no formal report tonight, but the Park and Rec meeting will take place tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Mano? Safety and Transportation, Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On April 19th, Mr. Monaco and I met with Chief Mealy and Captain Paquette to discuss adding live feed cameras at 3 of our intersections, Mayfield Road and Som Center, Mayfield Road and Golden Gate, and Mayfield Road and Lander. We learned that 80% of crimes are solved by the use of these cameras. The chief and Captain Paquette had a thorough video presentation that we observed detailing how much wider the scope of the intersection cameras would be versus just license plate readers. In the proposal are cameras that can span pan 360 degrees with perfect image quality in all directions. The fact that these new cameras are live feed means that they can store the contact for longer periods of time and can also zoom into 700 to 800 feet. We currently have license plate reader cameras, which are located at the Walmart area, but not at the Mayfield and Som intersection. And the license plate readers are currently being maintained by the county because they own those cameras. The chief looked at other companies, but decided on presenting a proposal from I2C Technologies, which is out of Canton, Ohio, and it's the newest technology available and the most affordable. There is another company that was discussed, and it's called Flock, and that provides live feed cameras, but the cost of that system is $3,000 per year per license. So we decided that that would probably be out of the realm of reality. And as we talked about the cameras in the surrounding city, we learned that Hunting Valley has 20 cameras in their small community. The chief's proposal includes 3 intersections with the first-year warranty included, including tech support, software upgrades, and system adjustments, and the cost would be $80,077.73, and that is through the state bid pricing. We also discussed upgrading to 32 cameras for the police department jail, the lobby, interview rooms, and the exterior police department lot, both inside and outside. The current cameras are over 10 years old, and they do not cover the front at all, and currently they are on 5 different systems in the police department. So it would be beneficial if we upgraded and had one camera system that operates the entire area. Again, the chief felt that the I2C technology would be the best provider for these cameras at a cost of $46,531.74, and that does include installation and a larger server to accommodate the cameras. If you would like more information, Captain Paquette is here. I hope each of you support these 2 proposals when we get them on the agenda. The cameras are a great way to watch for vehicle accidents at these intersections and keep the residents safe at the intersections and flush out the criminals that want to exit the city after committing a crime. We do have a couple items that we discussed in our meeting for the 2024 budget, and that would be remodeling the 2 bathrooms, which are original from 1985. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Tressi. Are there any further questions from council? They should be on our next meeting?
It should be on our
recommendation?
next meeting, I would
Okay.
we'd be ready
We'll
by
look
then.
for it. Thank you. Okay. Board of Zoning Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Zoning Appeals met on April 11th. As a result, there are 2 items on the agenda tonight. I encourage all applicants to address council during the public portion of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Moving to Planning Commission, Mr. Balistreo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. All right, we will now proceed to the public portion of the meeting. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to speak and address council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please fill out a form located on the table at the public entrance of the council chamber. During the public portion, I will call each of you wishing to speak to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record and clearly speak into the microphone. It is 7:28, and I will open up the public portion. First, I would like to have Valentina Gulyavera. That's fine. Thank you.
My name is Valentina Gulyaeva, and I live at 1390 Golden Gate Boulevard, apartment 102E, Mayfield Heights, Ohio 44124. And I'm really happy about it. I live here for 25 years, and I'm sorry about my English anyway, but I'm really happy. I think our city is the best city, and I'm really thankful for our council and for our city for your great job, guys. So, I think that the outlook of our city and our memorial must match with the great work. So my suggestion, if we could please add more flowers in the spring around the city, next to the wall, next to the fire department, and next to the memorial, because it looks kind of empty, not very nice. Maybe we could plan some daffodils, for example, or maybe is it possible to hire landscaping, because I spoke with service department, but of course they mostly work with snow removal, garbage removal. They don't know a lot about flowers, bushes, and everything. So is it possible maybe to hire landscaping? Then our city and our memorial especially will look very nice, not just during memorial service, which is the best, I think, but all the time. Another question is it possible to help with Mayfield Heights healthcare? They use our name, but what is inside, guys, I do not want to take your time. Maybe we could help somehow, because if something happened with us, broken bones or something, we have to go to this Mayfield Heights healthcare, which is at Mayfield Road next to Target, between Target, Atlas Movie Theater, and Pink and Lizard, I believe, and Gates Mills. The conditions are really bad for seniors, disabled, veterans. Also, they own a small forest next to this healthcare. And right now, this small forest, which is just one piece of treasure for all surrounding seniors community, this forest is dying because Eastgate Shopping Plaza, they put a huge barn full of chemicals, and these chemicals stay over there for the whole year long. With salt and different chemicals, they don't need it, but anyway, these chemicals are staying there, and during the rain and snow, of course, they dissolve in the water, and they go directly into the soil, into the forest, and the trees next to this barn are dying already. I have a lot of pictures. I just do not want to take your time, but I believe I sent some pictures to maybe some of you. Maybe we could, if this Mayfield Heights healthcare facility cannot afford to keep the facility and keep the forest in good condition. Maybe is it possible to buy it from them for the city? Because we have a lot of, I don't remember exactly, but probably 3 huge seniors facilities surrounding this small piece of forest. And mostly these people, they do not have cars or they cannot drive already. They're disabled, they're sick. Some of them are dying, you know, it just, it's really trash. They look out of the window from their maybe 10th floor for this forest and they see, oh, it's spring, it's summer, it's whatever, listen to birds. But right now, this small piece of forest is dying because of this barn with chemicals. I tried to speak by myself with Eastgate Shopping Plaza, but they did not want to listen to me. So if it's possible to help. And one more, I don't know if it's 5 minutes or what, just, I don't know, maybe I should stop, maybe next time.
You have a couple more minutes if you'd like to say something.
I
30
don't know,
seconds.
it is just Mayfield Village. We have a White Heaven Memorial Park over there. It's Mayfield Village. It is not Mayfield Heights, but it is a cemetery. It's a huge part with veterans section. Around 1,000 graves over there with veterans from World War I, II, and different kind of wars. But right now, again, the condition is horrible. I'm ashamed to sit over there during Memorial Day, surrounding by holes full of water and mud and everything. Roads are really broken. And I tried to speak with people from this cemetery. They made small portion next to this memorial, but the whole square where the whole service is going on right now is in horrible condition. And right now it's the end of April already. So if you could help with this too, I don't know if it's possible, of course. Again, thank you so much. I'm really appreciate. I'm afraid I will cry. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Valentina, we're working with a beautification committee right now, so maybe those are areas we can look at to add more flowers with this group that we have going on right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Lisa Weiner. Yeah, you can go either one. And you could put your papers down so that we could, they can show everyone what you're, perfect. If you can speak into the microphone, turn it on, till it's green, perfect, thank you.
My name is Lisa Weiner. My address is 7405 Rockwell Court, Mentor, Ohio.
Yeah.
And I am here representing Juicy Seafood. And we are coming before you as we have just gotten approval from the ARB, or I'm sorry, BZA for our signage variance. So we're bringing that before you to see if you could vote on that. We are requesting a variance for an increase of 40 square feet above the 100 square foot sign maximum. We are in Eastgate Shopping Center. We are set back 200 feet from Som Center Road. Signage is a really critical piece to a restaurant's marketing. A restaurant is very impulse-driven, and we are competing with many other restaurants for our customers' dining dollars. So being able to be seen is critical to a new restaurant, especially a new restaurant to the market. Our sign parapet is less prominent than our neighboring tenants. Five Below, Marshall's, and CVS sign parapets are much higher than ours, so ours is a little bit lower. And on these pictures, you can see if you're driving down Som Center Road,
Is there a way to zoom in on it?
it's very hard to see where our sign band is.
If you can pull them into the middle, then we can zoom into it so we could see it better.
So, is that better?
Just bring them down a little bit.
So the very first picture is the view at the intersection of Mayfield and Som Center Road. As you're in the turning lane, going to turn left onto Som Center Road. The side arrow is showing how visible our sign band is from that intersection. The second one down here is the view if you're headed on Som Center Road, headed north, going through the intersection of Mayfield with Eastgate Shopping Center on your right-hand side. The picture over here is the view heading north on Som, just before the light to turn into the shopping center. And then down here is the view heading south just before the light to enter the center as well. Being that we are set so far back from the road and the line of trees, if you're in a motor vehicle heading up and down Som Center Road, it's very hard to see the sign. Additionally, both Marks and Five Below signs fill their parapets completely. Marshall's was granted a variance in December, bringing their total square footage of signage up to 249 square feet. The former Fox and Hound had a larger sign that filled their sign parapet as well and was comparable to the size we're requesting. If our sign was, if you so choose and we are not granted the variance and our sign is reduced, it would look very disproportionate to the adjacent signs and would dwarf in comparison to both Five Below, CVS, and Marshall's carpet, and would affect our visibility and therefore sales.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. We can address questions when you come before us this evening. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And last, we have Mr. Chad Lichten.
Hello, my name is Chad Lichten, and I live on Fairhaven Road, and I've been coming here for over 4 years. That's over 1,000 days, just trying to look out of my window at night because our neighbor makes sure that we cannot. They use an LED much brighter than this, much brighter than this. Anyway, the last meeting we talked
Chad,
about the,
We'll
what?
need to turn the light down because it might affect the cameras.
What about my eyes at night? No, this is my style. This
We
is
can
me
turn the light off.
securing myself. It's my security.
Okay.
This makes me feel secure.
All right, Mr. Lichten, everybody in the public wants to see our meetings, but we might not be able to see the meetings if the light is shining and obstructing
Not that many people watch these things. I think you guys will be quite
Then
visible.
just, if you want to move it over to the side so that the light and the cameras won't affect them, that's all I'm asking.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll just talk louder. The law director, Murphy, he gave a lot of spiel last week about the ordinance in a way almost like he was a light expert. And I know.
Mr. Lichten, can you please speak into the microphone?
I know it was voted down, and that's fine because it was a cut and paste from California ordinance, and it wasn't really that meaningful, and, so you voted it down, that's fine. I hope we can still get something on the table again. But I thought I'd respond to some of what Murphy said, just so we can hear it again.
I haven't found any ordinance that would be applicable to the city of Mayfield type.
Well, had you, Murphy, looked for an ordinance, it was all Dijon looking, so.
I think with regard to
Mr. Lichten, can you please shut the light off for us?
Why? Is it hurting you?
You know what, it's not about hurting, it's interfering with the room and the
It's
cameras.
a necklace. Oh, I could turn it
Thank you.
off. All right. Can I turn it down a little? Off, okay.
Thank
okay.
you.
Okay. But I don't feel as secure anymore.
light or anything having to do with light that would be enforceable
Okay, well, that I've never heard about. So a spotlight, you can't have. I've never known that's an ordinance here for residential properties. This post light we're dealing with? Dad, can you get that poster, please? Show everybody the spotlight inside the post light that we have to look at night. Dad, you can hold it. Thank you. So that's not a spotlight. It's in a stick, a post light.
That was shining from one property into another one, like a regular spotlight. Highland Heights has an ordinance like that, with regard to spotlights. But with regard to a regular, light post, like we've been discussing here, no, I don't think there's anything that could be come up with that would be enforceable.
What makes the light from a post light so unenforceable, Mr. Murphy?
Follow-up, we do, even if we tried to draft an ordinance, you still think that it's not going to be enforceable. Difficult, if not impossible, to enforce. And, for example, the houses are so close, you've got your dining room light on and it's shining on your neighbor if there's no driveway in between, or even if there is a driveway in
It's a
between.
little different.
It could be shining into your neighbor, and that would be difficult. This particular one that we're talking about, I've been out there several times in the evening, and the street light is brighter than the post light.
Did you measure it, Mr. Murphy?
That's probably causing more of a
Right.
problem than
Mr. Lichten,
Yes.
we just need for you to give us information and no slighted comments or this
It's not
is not a
slighted.
debate.
I'm honestly
okay?
wondering, did he measure it? Because you are saying you can't enforce an ordinance because you don't have the equipment to do so, but you also say such contradictory things about it. So here we are for over 1,000 days,
Yeah, it remains my opinion. I haven't seen anything that I think could be enforceable. Thank you. That's, a commercial area, you have more control over a commercial area than you do a residential, especially if it's shining into a residential area. It becomes more of a nuisance.
How could a commercial light of whatever intensity be more of a nuisance than a residential one? It's light.
Mr. Lichten, you've reached 5 minutes.
Okay, have I?
5.11, 12, 13. Yeah. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to be heard this evening? Mr. Natale, you could just go to you could just go straight up there. Yeah, we just can't, yeah, I can ask the question for you and I already have an update, because I spoke to him already, but you definitely can bring it up. Okay.
Hi, my name's Wayne Natale, over here, and I live at 6440 Woodhawk Drive. I just had, looking for an update. Several months ago, issues were raised regarding the animal control contract. Have never heard how that was resolved. So we are in prime animal mating season, and it's becoming an issue. So I'm just looking for an update from Mr. Murphy or from council on how that contract was resolved and if that contract is available for public viewing. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard this evening? Okay. Thank you. I will close the public portion to 7:45. We will move to resolutions, beginning with Resolution 2023-36. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. Resolution 2023-36, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Ashley Ryan Consulting, LLC, to provide consulting services regarding the naming rights procedure for the Aquatic Center and Community Center in the city of Mayfield Heights and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Do I have a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea. Second
Second.
by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mrs. Sabetta. At the last council meeting, we had a committee of the whole meeting with Ashley Ryan Consulting Firm, and we placed it on first reading to review the contract and discuss with her, the firm whether or not you had any further questions. Does any member of council have any questions this evening?
Madam Chair,
Miss-
if I could, oh,
Mr.
Did somebody
Monaco
else?
looked at me, but if you want to speak.
go ahead.
Mr. Monaco.
Thank you. I am a little confused. Maybe it's because I was late at the last meeting, but the question that I have is, before we sell something, I think we need to know exactly where are we selling. And at this point, I'm not sure if we're selling a sign for the whole complex, if we're selling a sign for the rec center, the community center, the pool, the playground. Will there be a sign on the building? If there's a sign on the building, on which side of the building is it going to be? Is it going to be on the freeway side? Is it going to be on the Marceau side? Also, if we're selling a sign, what size sign are we selling? I mean, I think we should have all this in front of us so we know exactly what we're selling. And assuming that we're selling one for each one of those, one for rec center, one for the community center, there couldn't be more than 5, 6 items to sell. And I don't see how it would take like 5 or 6 months to sell this. Those are the comments that I have.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Mayor.
Mr. Monaco, do you not have the brochure that the city made that shows the possibilities of the, what is for sale or what can be named, I should say, and suggested costs for those? And if you didn't get that, that's my fault. I apologize if you never saw that, because that answers a lot of those questions in there. As the naming opportunities, what the city would like to see in return for those, and where they would be located. I guess it's not very specific on there where they're located, but like overall naming rights of the building, would be on the gym facing the freeway and, prominent enough to warrant what we would like to have as a donation for it. But also maintaining the name, Mayfield Heights Event Center, or we would have our name on it also. So those are on there. And like I said, if you didn't get that, I apologize. That is my fault. You should have had that.
That's all right, no problem. At least I have an idea now. So we are selling multiple items related to different buildings or activities there.
Correct. So one would be the overall naming rights of the facility.
Okay.
The community center rooms, the gymnasium itself inside. There's suggested opportunities for the playground, the slide, the slides, plural, and some other areas around the facility itself. Yeah. And if I could,
Go ahead.
as anybody, I don't want to take
Go ahead.
anybody else's time if they have something. If I could, I just wanted to ask Ashley, I emailed council earlier today and kind of voiced my support and why I think it was a good idea to bring on your company. And one, I know an issue was some of the maybe time that would be allotted for you to work on it. And would you be agreeable to giving council like a weekly report as to what you're doing? You know, what you've done that week, how successful, unsuccessful you've been, hopefully not unsuccessful. And, you know, that way council could be more assured of what's, progress is being made, or that we are spending our money wisely. I think that was the biggest, worry from council. And again, it's month to month. If we're not happy with our weekly reports, I hate to say it, but we could part ways amicably, hopefully. But that's just what I just wanted to make sure, you were okay with that month, like a weekly report, and maybe that makes a difference with council. I don't know. So.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mayor DeSico. Absolutely, I can provide a weekly report on Friday or Saturday morning so you all can review and ask any questions that you have.
Does anyone have any questions further for Mr. Balestrea?
I just had a comment. Last meeting, when we asked Ashley about the experience she had with this, I mean, she has a very complete and very professional resume, but I was a little set back because I didn't really see the experience in doing this type of work. I mean, so I think it's relatively new, and I'm just hesitant to take that chance, whereas with the previous person, I was a little more
Comfortable.
a little more accepting. So if we did do a month by month and saw the progress, and maybe a lot more time was invested, I'd be more apt to give it a go. And the other thing, and I guess I'll address the mayor, is I'm still a little bit hesitant about the look of, we don't have that look of what it would, of what the signage would, comprise within. I want to see big placards, and things like, if you had a little, plaque on a park bench, but, I didn't want to see the, balustry, big sign in front, well, I'm not going to do that, but in front of the, in front of the playground.
Are you gonna
know
do
what
a
I mean?
monument with a
I wouldn't want to see
flagpole?
somebody's name that really is not associated necessarily with the city being named to our playground. I mean, this is our ownership, and I want to keep it our ownership. And I understand what we're trying to do, but at the same time, I'm a little hesitant about what that look's going to be. If they're going to be small plaques, as opposed to, big signage on a wall, then I'd like to see some kind of rendering or something like that, that maybe that would give council more apt to say, let's go ahead with it.
Madam Chair.
So,
if I could.
Mayor.
I think we would have to see what comes up and who it is and how much, where it's at in the building, and how much, the donation's going to be before we can come up with a rendering that we could show council, and
I mean,
we
Mayor,
could
are
adjust
we-
it,
Excuse me, are we going to be dictated as to what they would want, or are we going to have some set priorities as to size and shape and?
Well, I would say that, Sean's chomping at the bit to talk, but wait. I would say that if somebody was going to make a large donation like that, I'm sure they're going to have some say in it, but I'm sure there's a compromise that we could reach we don't want it to look gaudy. This is our baby, right? This is
Right. I'm
This
just-
is,
I don't
our
wanna
crown
take-
jewel, so
yeah,
we're
I
not
just don't
going to
wanna take
ruin
away
it
from that beautification
with a
of
Vegas
this,
sign on it, so.
When you look at the myriad of all the things that we have, it could look like you walk into nothing but signage.
I think if you look, like if you walk into Hillcrest Hospital, you'll see all types of those signs. Very tastefully done. Look at the main sign, for the Seidman Center. Very tasteful. That would be something we would be striving for, not something gaudy or something, just totally out of place with the building.
Okay.
And I don't think ARB would let us do that either.
Chair?
Mr. Monaco.
Thank you. I also like to add that I am not so sure if myself and the rest of my colleagues here are willing to sell the naming rights of all these parts here. I think that, this is for the people of Mayfield Heights. And I think this parts of it probably should be named after some of the people that lived in our city, maybe served in our city. I think, Mayor DeJohn could be in one of them. I think the person like Larry Sophia, who did so much for the city for so many years, could be probably named on one of those. So again, I'm not so sure that we should sell as much as we can sell here. I think there should be some here that we should keep for ourselves to honor some of the people that preceded us and were very instrumental in bringing us where we are today.
And those were all conversations we had. We mentioned the very same names.
Okay.
So I do have a question, actually two questions. One for Mrs. Fagan. So I've done a lot of fundraising at the school level and different organizations over the years. And we always had to have a 501(c) so that the business can have a tax write-off for their donation to whatever the fundraiser was. With the city, how would that work? I don't know, like you're bringing in money for a sign. Is it going into a specific fund? Do you have to have a 501(c) for that? I don't understand how that part would work.
We would not have a 501(c)(3), but we are a nonprofit entity. We are a city. So a donation to the city would be tax deductible for them. And especially depending, I have done some research on that, depending on what services are given in consideration of that. If it is just signage, that should not be an issue, and it should be deductible to the organization. Obviously, I would tell any organization to contact their tax professional, but
And then the other question I had, I spoke to Mr. Ward a lot about this, and so maybe you can answer this. There's lots of different things that are being sold. There's, we have tonight the bricks, we have park benches, we have lots of different things other than the big buildings. Am I correct by saying that you had said that the Parks and Rec Department will be selling those?
Yes, the commemorative items that you got in your packet, you got that little pamphlet, hopefully. Yeah, so we'll be selling those, bricks, benches, tables. We'll be selling those to the Parks and Rec Department.
And have you put a time frame on the sale of those, or is it like, are you going to sell the bench and that bench will be that person forever, or are you going to give it a time frame?
So I think we see on the pamphlet that will go 10 years or the life of the item. So for instance, if there's a table that looks like it's getting long in the tooth and it needs to be replaced, then we'll give that sponsor a chance to re-up if they'd like to, and if they wouldn't, then we would pass it on. But it would be at least 10 years before something like that would happen on those outside park benches.
So what's before us this evening is Ashley Ryan's Consulting, and you would just be selling, go over with what you would be selling. I guess that's the best.
Yeah, the item specific to the Aquatic and Community Center listed on the brochure that you have would be my target. For the naming rights.
And if council's not comfortable with all those naming rights, we could trim it down. If you want to say, hey, let's make it, 5 of the, the most prominent ones or something like that, that's fine. Look, I have no dog in this fight other than to say I would like to bring in some money for the city. That's all, to offset the cost of this. If council chooses not to do that, then that's fine. We know we have the funds available. We know we're financially stable. That's fine. But I thought it would be nice to bring to council an idea to offset some of the cost.
Are there any other questions from council or comments? Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes, thank you. So this is a very nice chat, but we're here now. I'm confused. Are we here to say we aren't ready to sell naming rights? Or are we here to hire Ashley Ryan Consulting or not?
So what's before us this evening is to hire
Yes.
Ashley and her company to do this. But I see exactly what you're saying, and that was one of the reasons why I sent an email to all members of council asking, even if you're on board with naming rights at this point anymore. I'm getting mixed feelings. So, you know, however anybody wants to vote on this, you're sticking your finger up. Do you want me to finish or to go ahead?
No, finish. I'm just trying to.
All right, however anybody wants, you know, their decision based on this evening will be either in favor of hiring her to go for the naming rights or to not. So, but Mr. Murphy, go ahead. And then
I
we'll-
just wanted to jump in here that any naming rights would be subject to an agreement that has to come back before council and be approved by council. So if you've got, naming, a slide at the pool in honor of somebody, that would have to come back before council, and that would delineate how much and how long.
Mrs. Tracy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. At our last meeting, I, had questioned Ms. Yassel on her experience, just as Mr. Balestrea mentioned. On her website, it talks about women's recovery and addiction, but there is nowhere that tells me where she's done naming rights and for who and the money that was raised. That's number one that kind of concerns me. Secondly, we're selling naming rights for this entire building, the gym, the community rooms, where it should be one community room. So we're selling naming rights for everything that we've built. We're selling park benches, we're selling tables, we're selling chairs. Pretty soon we'll sell the community, the whole complex. Maybe we'll get more. But it just seems like, to me, it gives the look of desperation that we're putting a name or a plaque on absolutely everything. I think since we've been told that we are viable and we have lots of money and we can afford $35 or $40 million for this pool, I don't think we should be nickel and diming every piece of furniture, every chair, every table, every bench. I get fundraising. I understand the pavers. That was supposed to be like a fun thing for, memoriam, or, you wanting to remember your parents or your grandparents who lived here. But I mean, we're naming everything we look like we need money. And I think that's the wrong perception. If we need money, then we should have cut back on what we've spent instead of waiting until the 11th hour and now trying to desperately raise money. It's my own opinion, but that's
I
kind
think
of how
that's a
I feel
perception
about
of a lot.
the perception and how it looks.
Mr. Mano, did you have something?
I've said all I have to say about this matter. I've reiterated it many times, and I stand by what I said. It should be called the Mayfield Heights Aquatic and Event Center, the Ross C. DeJohn Community Room, and the meeting room should be named after the people that built those ball fields, and one of those 3 or 4 pools should have Charlie Draga's name on it. We wouldn't have a pool in this city if it wasn't for that man. And that's all I got to say about it.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? Questions? No?
I just want to have
Mr.
one more thing.
Balestrea.
I would feel a lot more comfortable if, hearing what I heard tonight, if we could actually scale it back a little bit. And I just want to have that comfort zone where I just don't feel like I want to walk in there and see a bunch of placards. You know, maybe we don't name this and we don't name that and we don't name this, and we're just going after the higher priced things and not so much the lower priced things that we really don't need to. And maybe take a little more time since council has a lot of different opinions right now.
Mrs. Tressi.
I would say let's call for the vote.
I can't. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn,
No.
Mr. Monaco,
No.
Mrs. Teresi,
No.
Mr. Balestrea,
No.
Mr. Mano,
No.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
No. This motion has been defeated. Resolution number 2023-38, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-38, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to King Wee Juicy Seafood on behalf of Cosmo Eastgate Limited, 1479 Som Center Road, a variance to install 140 square feet of W1 signage on the front wall of the building. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 862-29-018. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Monaco,
Second.
second by Mrs. Tressi. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea, second by Mrs. Tressi. This was a 3-2 vote by the BZA. Mrs. Sabetta, could you please give a report from your meeting?
Thank you. Council heard from the applicant's broker and has the BZA meeting minutes. The sign was installed without a permit. The applicant requests a 40-square-foot variance, stating visibility as the practical difficulty in the size of the sign. It was a 3-2 vote to recommend. 5 members were present. The sign will need ABR approval.
Mr. Mano.
Three comments. Number one, as far as visibility is concerned, there's been a little sign in that window for the better part of a year that says "coming soon." And myself and a lot of other people in the city who wondered what was going to happen there have all seen that sign. So I don't think visibility is a problem. The thing I have the main problem with is, once again, people come into the city, they bypass the building department, they don't even bother to check as far as permits or anything else. They go ahead and they do what they want to do, and then after the fact, they want our blessing to be able to keep what they have in place. And I just think that's wrong, and I think we should send a message. If you're going to come in our city, then there's rules. And the first place you should go is the building department and find out what you need to know before you start doing what you're doing. So because of that, I am of no vote on this project. Thank you.
Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Mrs. Sabetta, do you know if this sign was manufactured by a professional sign company?
Mrs. Weiner, do you want? Go ahead.
Would you like to bring the applicant's
Yeah, so
broker up?
I'm just trying to find out if it was done by a sign company, and I'd like to know why the sign company didn't realize we needed a permit.
Mrs. Weiner,
That
if you
was
want to come up to the podium, you can explain.
The sign was done by a professional sign company, not local. My client is from out of state. They've done other restaurants in other states, and the states where they originally opened did not require certain permits. I took over to rectify their issues because I know better. There is a language difference here. They don't speak English very well, but I'm here to correct the mistakes that they made by installing a sign without going and getting the proper permits. And
Thank
we
you.
understand that if you so choose, we will have to remove it. Absolutely understand that.
So the sign that is up right now is the sign size? Like what?
104, it's 140 square feet. It was, what the sign company did is they designed what Fox and Hound had up because we took
Based
Fox
on-
and Hound down, so
okay.
they fit it just to that. But if you do not approve it, we will have to remove it and fabricate a new sign. They understand that. They have multiple restaurants and
Okay,
it'll be a hardship, but we will do what you ask.
thank you. Mrs. Tressi?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Weiner, why did it take so long? You did put that sign up, as Mr. Mano mentioned, a year ago.
Yeah.
And then nothing has been done during that year.
There were supply chain issues getting equipment from overseas where they were bringing it. We had some issues going through the building process, getting the plans and permits, doing it right, getting the proper permits. We needed to have a sprinkler system installed because the building did not have the right suppression. So that process took about a year. My client moved in and started construction right away. All we did basically was aesthetics, but because we needed to upgrade the space, it took them over about a year and a half, and they've been paying rent for over a year and a half before they were finally able to open about a week and a half ago. So they did, it was a little bit of lack of understanding of Ohio ways. Most of their restaurants are in Indianapolis. We did some in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but Ohio to them is a little different. And I did Harvard Park for them. This was a little different because the owner had gone overseas and he was trying to direct things from there and thought he knew how to do it, but he didn't. So I'm trying to fix that.
So Harvard Park on Harvard.
Yeah, we took the old Abuelo's restaurant, and they've been open there for about a little over a year.
And did they have to have go to the building department
I
in
did
that
all-
community?
yes. Yeah, I did
They
all of
did.
that for them at the
So they
time.
knew that they had to do that in Highland, go to for signage and
They were,
permits.
I did all of it, and they were kind of removed. They were in Indianapolis, so they just let me handle everything. This time, I couldn't help them. I was dealing with a accident with my parents, so I wasn't involved, and then I got involved and found the sign up and took over and tried to fix it now.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to know, are you saying this sign is the exact size of the Fox and Hound?
It fits in the same slot as the Fox and the Hound fit, yes.
And do we know if the Fox and the Hound got a variance to put that sign up?
That's what I was wondering. Do you know that?
Yes.
Did they?
When the Fox and the Hound went up, the design manual was not in place. They needed no variance.
It predated it. I looked as well, because I searched for Five Below and I searched for Marshalls.
So I'm thinking that this could be grandfathered in because they're putting up the same exact sign where the Fox and Hound sign
Put
is.
on overhead.
You want this on the
Yeah.
overhead? I marked it out.
Mr. Murphy, can you see if this could be grandfathered in?
I would doubt it would be grandfathered because it's been too long since the sign has been replaced and it's a new business.
So
I
it
could
does.
take a look at it.
It doesn't go with the land, it goes with the actual.
Well, it does go with the land, but there was no variance necessary, as I understand it, when Fox and Hound went in, but the law has changed since then, so now the variance is necessary.
So it goes with the business and not the land. I mean, it goes with the land, but, you know,
The law has
sometimes-
changed.
Okay, all right. Mr. Monaco?
Thank you. Did you receive a written permission from the owner of the building to place a sign that big on his?
We
on his
gave
building?
him this sign rendering when we did the lease, and he approved it.
With the sign, okay.
Yes.
And secondly, I mean, in order for you to receive a variance, you have to show that there's a hardship or a practical difficulty. I'm struggling with find one of those. I mean, I don't, that business would work real well if the sign complied with the 100 feet.
Well, I think as I showed earlier, we are set so far back from the road. A restaurant is very impulse-driven. Marshall's was granted a sign variance, who is our neighbor.
Talk
Five
into
Below
the
was
microphone,
Oh,
please.
Five Below was granted that same, both based on visibility and setback from the road. And they are right beside us. So, if we were to shrink the size of the sign down to 100 square feet, we would look so disproportionate to all of the signs that are adjacent to us. Marshall's has 249 square feet. Five Below's fills their entire parapet, which is the same size as ours, and Five Below is the same size store, has the same amount of frontage as us, and our parapet happens to be a little bit lower, so it's a little bit harder to see from the street.
Thank you. Mrs. Sabetta, I see 3 people on BZA voted in favor of this variance. Were there reasoning? I mean, was there a lot more discussion to the reasoning?
You have the minutes.
Yeah, I
which
read
are
them.
are pretty. 2 of us did not see the visibility, and that was her claim. Also, knowing that people use their GPS, 2 of us did drive it. And also, just the possibility it went up. They do have other businesses, and this one was the one that went up without a permit, without coming to the city.
I'm sorry, Mr. Murphy.
You're looking the other way. I've been thinking about Mr. DeJohn's point, and rather than do it haphazardly, I think I'd request 2 weeks to take a look at it and see maybe there is some type of grandfathering there. I'd hate to make a mistake, so I would suggest you just leave this on first reading and come back in 2 weeks.
Perfect. All right, any further discussion?
I'll make a motion to put it on readings.
A second. It's there. All right. So that's what we'll do. We'll visit it in 2 weeks from now. Thank
Is
you.
there anything else I should be bringing when I come?
I think you've said it all. If there's anything you forgot, you can definitely come to the meeting and share it with us, or if you want to email myself or any of us, we'll be there. Thank you. All right, resolution number 2023-39, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-39, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights and granting to John Hamilton, 1101 Eastwood Road, a variance to install a fence on a corner lot that is less than 15 feet from the right-of-way line. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 861-04-058. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. Belstrao. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Teresi. This was a 5-0 vote in favor of the variance. Corner lots can be difficult, and I believe the BZA reviewed this in detail. Mrs. Sabetta, is there anything you would like to add?
I will add the applicant is requesting a 5-foot setback variance where a 15-foot setback is required. This is a corner lot with a small backyard on a busy street, and safety concerns for children are in play. The fence would be erected in line, uniform, and abutting a neighbor's fence. The practical difficulty is the 10 feet would limit the use of yard space. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta?
I do.
Mr. Monaco?
Thank you. This really troubles me because I think that this installation is going to present a dangerous, vision impairing obstacle to the people walking on the sidewalk. I realized, I visited the property today, I realized that down the road there is one that is exactly at the same distance, but this is going to be so close to the driveway that somebody backing out of this driveway could possibly hit a kid on a bike, or a lady walking a dog, or a pedestrian. I think at the very least, I would like to see a traffic officer look at this and make a recommendation, because I think that somebody's going to get hurt at this place.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yeah, there was a discussion. I do have pictures here. The neighbors is 5 feet that he would be abutting. The car that he has does not hit the sidewalk. It's a big, large truck. Right after the sidewalk is a large bush. And when I was there was a utility truck in the street and a orange cone. And I watched them pull in and out. So I don't feel, I feel the safety part is his children, his child playing in the yard, which would really be a teeny little backyard. And they did explain in the minutes that they have checked this many times, pulling in and out. They're very careful. And it is a busy street, so I understand people on the sidewalk, people walking dogs. We did talk about all that. If you want to see the picture.
May I respond to that?
Mr. Monaco?
Thank you. The 15-foot section and distance was not arbitrarily just put on the books. It was because it's there for a reason, and it's because you must have 15 feet to provide proper sight of an oncoming vehicle or an oncoming pedestrian on the sidewalk. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mrs. Tressi, did you have something?
No.
Mr. Belster, okay. Are there any further questions?
Just,
Oh, Mr. DeJohn?
thank you. And I assume that the neighbor got a variance for this, so, you know, they got a variance. How could we deny this applicant a variance?
It's
What's-
not close to the sidewalk like this one. This one is right by the sidewalk. And
it's
you
five.
backing out from that driveway, you really would not be able to see anybody coming the other way.
Mrs.
That's my
Sabetta?
opinion.
It's 5 feet in as the neighbors. It would abut the neighbors, which is 5 feet. It's a 5-foot setback instead of 15 feet.
Mr. DeJohn?
So it's the same, right?
As the neighbor, yes.
Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Balestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
No.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. Resolution 2023-39 has been approved. Moving to Resolution 2023-40. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution number 2023-40, A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Newcastle Communications for the purchase of a new telephone system at City Hall and the Aquatic and Community Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved?
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Belstraya. Second by Mr. Monaco. All members of council should have received the memo and the contract from Newcastle. It's broken down into two sections. The City Hall will not exceed an amount of $77,683, and the Aquatic Center would not exceed $12,172. They include a labor and the install of the system, and we also will get an extra year of technical support. Mr. Police is here this evening if we want to address any questions to him. Any member of council? Mr. Balestria.
Yeah, Nick, maybe, can I address Nick?
Yeah. Nick,
Nick,
if you
could
want
we-
to come up to the podium, please. Thank you.
Can we use the existing phone lines that are currently running through City Hall right now, tap into those and just apply those to the new system? Or those have to all be pulled back?
They would
Because that's
all-
real labor intensive.
They're going to be able to use some of the existing wiring.
Yeah.
So all the telephones, like at the desk, would get replaced. We would use an Ethernet cable, Cat 6, and mostly in the fire department, they have wall phones. So we would continue to use the analog lines that they have there. So this would be a hybrid system where they can use both IP, Ethernet, and analog telephone.
Okay, that was my next question, if it's going to be compatible with an analog.
Yeah, it's
system.
compatible with both.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mrs. Tressi.
And Nick, will the Aquatic Center, City Hall, and the Police and Fire Department will all be able to utilize the same phone system?
Yes. So if somebody at City Hall dials Sean's extension, it's going to go right down to the new building.
And the same thing with the Police Department?
Yes.
And did we get 3 bids?
So this was on the state bid, and I did talk to a few other companies. They were more cloud-based, so they were cheaper, but in the long run, they wanted more money yearly for the cloud services. So those came in roughly $30,000 a year, and about $30 per user.
Additional to what you quoted? And how many users will we have on this system?
Roughly 120.
Wow. Thank you.
Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. Do we know when we replace the phone system here at City Hall? It seems like we've just done that within 2 or 3 years.
It was in 2013.
No.
No, I don't think so. I think,
It's about 10 years. Because I was on council when we did the last phone system, and it was a Panasonic, and they're no longer, I realized that, who was? Renee, yes. And they're no longer servicing Panasonic phone systems. That's the problem, is that technology changes and companies go out of business. But it's
Yes.
been about
Yeah.
10 years, I
years.
think, 10,
We had issues in here, remember?
yeah.
Yeah.
Figured.
And if we were to just get the phones over at the Aquatic, they would not be compatible. That's
They
what I
wouldn't be
was reading.
compatible, no.
Right. Okay.
Just as an added note, though, the companies that we did talk to that were cloud-based, Newcastle hasn't been able to give us an estimate on how much money savings we will have until they actually come out. The other 2 companies are estimating around $5,000 a year that we would be saving on telephone services. They were both shocked at how much we were paying.
So there will be a savings in this company
Yeah.
as well? Okay. Mrs. Tressi?
I'm sorry, I missed, where is the savings coming from?
The telephone services, like AT&T, all the bills that come through that. So we would be switching over to our internet provider for most of these phones. So we would be saving money by using our internet that we have here,
And who's our provider?
Spectrum.
Madam President.
Mr. DeJohn?
Nick, there's some type of special line that they have to put in for the internet for large commercial properties like this, is that correct?
We already have it in here.
It's a high-speed line that, what's it called?
You mean our speed?
It's not,
Fiber optic?
it's not fiber.
Yes,
Oh, no,
it's fiber.
Oh, it is, we
Is
did
it-
get the fiber.
Isn't it fiber optic?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what it,
And how long do you think this phone system will last us?
This should last us quite a bit of time, especially
10
if it's
years at
only-
least, or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I have a question. What if the internet goes out?
So right now, we have a backup company, I think it's Fidelity. So if our telephones go down, they pick up the service. So what'll happen is, excuse me, we'll still have a second company to pick up in case the telephones go down.
Okay. All right, any further questions? Thank you, Nick. All right, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
yes,
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes. This resolution has now been adopted. We will move to resolution number 2023-41. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2023-41, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with That's My Brick for the purchase of commemorative pavers for use at the Mayfield Heights Aquatic and Community Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Monaco,
Second.
second by Mr. Belestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Teresi?
yes,
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Belestrea. I'm going to call Mr. Ward up here to go over the BRIC program. If you can explain it a little bit more to everyone.
So this is an example of the brick that we're targeting from That's My Brick. Actually, I'll go ahead and show you the location so you understand what we're talking about here. I don't know if you can zoom in on that. So if you can orientate yourself, do you see where the pool is? And this is the slide and the pool. And this is the aquatic building. Marsal runs across here. This circle is the flagpole and our clock that we had at the old community center. So those two will be going back. And that is where the pavers will be going. I've got a closer view of that shows that circle. See that? So that's the area that we're talking about for these bricks. The bricks are just one portion of the commemorative items that are available. Obviously, that's the largest quantity that you could buy of those bricks. But we also have some opportunities to buy, for those grandparents out there, or if you remember back to when you were a parent and you sat at the playground You want it to be out of the shade or have a place to sit where you can watch your kids closely. So those benches, tables are available. They will be used plenty. That playground is going to be a great asset to our community. And the parents that have the ability to sit down and eat, or grandparents to eat with their children or grandchildren on that bench or on that table will have a chance to see someone that has put their name on a table. In the playground, we have a total of 10 items that we're selling. And I know, Mrs. Truss, you mentioned that it sounds like we're trying to sell a whole bunch of stuff, but if you've been up to Oakville Park, there's no signs that you see up there, but there are all those benches around the community, around the playground there have a sponsor. Al Kay, I think, Gino Manfredi, Chuck Pona, to name a few. But it's done in a tactful way, and it doesn't scream, you don't see it unless you're going up there to sit down. And then you might see that name and remember that person if you're from the community. So those are the sway benches, the benches with the back, and the food court tables. And then additionally, we try to find a tactful way to bring some of the old community center into the new community center. So we have some beams that we've saved, and we're going to try to reclaim the wood and put on a nice bench that we could put inside the community room where you could, come in and have a seat and look out those nice plate glass windows at the pool. And there you might see that beam and remember the old community center. So there's 8 of those that are available as well. And all the prices that we put on these are basically the cost of the item plus a small installation fee. So we round it up a little bit so that we could cover the cost of that. So.
Question, have you gotten any other companies to bid this project?
To bid.
What we're
Well,
doing, yeah.
Well, so the bricks, we have looked at 3 different brick companies. That's My Brick, Midwest Engraving, and Thomas Brick, and that's My Brick came in cheapest. I think that's Mrs. Tressi recommended that company and approved out.
Okay. Mrs. Tressi?
And Sean, have you spoken to Mr. Trotta about a base for these bricks? Will they
Yes.
lay the concrete
We'll
and
put
then?
it on a mud mat, yep, on a concrete mat, and so it won't be jumping all over the place. So there's a cost to put the mat in, the curbing, and then the installation of the bricks. Some of these bricks aren't gonna be all square. You're not gonna be able to, engrave on all bricks. So all those costs will go into this program.
And is That's My Brick doing like a website for us? And did they do the brochure?
They did not do this brochure. We are going to,
Because they do all of that for free.
They do all that, but they also just take credit cards. And we want our residents to have the ability to come into City Hall if they have a check or cash they want to pay. So they will do all their typing and their picking of how they want their brick to look on That's My Brick site. But then when it comes time to pay, they will come back to our site and make the payment there.
Thanks.
Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. Sean, I think it was in 1985 they named the community center after Ross C. DeJohn. They also, before that, named Draga Pool after Mr. Draga. What's your guarantee to these people that sponsor these bricks that they're not going to be someday thrown aside and put something else in there?
I don't have any guarantee. I look at Oakville Park, and I say those bricks have been there for 25-plus years, and in the event that something happens and that park gets redone, they may get moved, but they're permanent, so they can be reused. I don't plan on being here 25 years from now, so I can't answer that question.
I have a question for you. and I might have missed it. Are these stamped like this, or is it wording, like, is it engraved, or is it stamped?
That is laser etched.
Lasered.
Yeah, so it's not engraved, and they say this lasts longer than the engraving. The engraving, has the pits in it, and then the water can get in there, and over time, with the freeze and thaw, I guess it can compromise that. This is the latest technology.
Mr. Balistreo?
Thank you. Mr. Ward, maybe I missed it. You said the cost to the residents and whomever was at their cost plus just the cost for placement? So the city's not making anything on these bricks, or is there some built-in profit for us as well?
Oh, no, for the bricks, there'll be a profit, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. That was the whole purpose.
Any further questions? Can you go over the pricing for the residents, please?
Sure. So, well, I'm going to put this here. Hopefully you can see this. This is a sway bench right here. The cost for a sway bench is $2,000. And like I said, that's the cost of the item plus installation fee. So we kind of rounded up a little bit. Next, you have this bench with a back on it. There's 5 of those. Again, in the playground, those will be $1,100. Table, we have 2 tables under a nice shade structure. So again, you're as a parent or a grandparent, you're roasting out there in that heat while your child or grandchild is playing. It'd be nice to be under shade where you can pull out a picnic lunch and eat. So there's 2 tables there. Those tables will be $2,500. And finally, the reclaimed wood. We have a frame that we're going to have manufactured and stained nicely to match the stain in the building, and those will go inside, and those will also be $2,500. And there's 8 of those.
And then the price of the bricks.
And the price of the bricks, this right here is a 4x8 brick. That'll be $250. And there's also a 8x8 brick that is $500.
500, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Tressi?
Sean, so the concrete is going to be there because
Yes.
that comes with the aquatic center, that we're going to concrete that little area.
Yes.
So that's really not part of putting the bricks down, other than,
Well, that mat, the
mat.
structure that we have to put in place to accept the bricks.
and who will set the bricks? Who will do that?
I think, well, the Higley Company will do it initially. I guess, my thought is that we'll make sales, we'll take sales, and at some point we'll draw a line in the sand and we'll say, all right, we're going to install these bricks. And then from there, I think a lot more people will see them, and then subsequent sales will happen. And so we'll probably do installations maybe in the spring and the fall of each year.
So
But
we
initially-
being the city.
Correct. But the Higley Company will do the installation initially. The first round of bricks and the sand and all the cutting, their group.
So whatever's not sold there'll just be a brick put in its place.
Correct. That can be sold at, again, we'll probably do
And
intervals.
this company doesn't come out and do this on the site, because I know other companies do. Or they come out and laser the brick already while it's in place.
Yeah, this company, they will take an order, they will laser the bricks. They have a great turnaround. There's 21 days turnaround from the time that you put your order in, 21 days. I think the other 2 companies, 8 weeks and 8+ weeks on the other one. So much quicker with this company.
Like, I love this idea. I think it's wonderful. My concern is the cost of the bricks. I'll be honest with you. I think it's a lot, $250 and $500 for our residents. I mean, maybe we'll be surprised and people will buy the bricks, but I think it's a little expensive. That's my only concern. If we don't see that these bricks are going, what would you consider doing?
I mean, we could consider lowering it. I mean, whenever the high school did their bricks, I think that was 2013. I think theirs was 250 and 500.
I don't know, I got a different price today, that's why.
What's that?
I got a different price, it was a lot lower, so I just was wondering. I just wanted to make sure, just seems like a lot, but
It's a little pricey.
It is a little pricey.
Excuse me.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Thank you. So, when things opened downtown and they were looking for fundraising all around and they were doing bricks, you didn't even know where your brick was going to go. It was $100 to buy a brick for any of the centers, the science centers. That's what it was. And that's how many years ago? Now, they have moved my brick once. I did buy a package. And due to building and sidewalks and traffic, so they do move them. And matter of fact, mine got moved to a better place. But back then, when they were building Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I mean, $100 was a lot of money. Nobody had a problem. They last a long time. Mine is still there. And like I said, now they moved mine by a bench so I can sit there and look at my whole family. But I know it seems pricey, but I think they'll go. It's a great idea. It's a nice marking.
I think if
Mr.
you're-
DeJohn?
Mrs. Sabetta, so how many are you going to order?
I am. I mean,
Your
I'll
whole
have-
family, I hope.
Nobody has to have gone. I mean, I did. Each one of my family.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Monaco?
Just for the record, to answer Mr. DeJohn's question, the guaranteed display time for plaque rights on a commemorative park item is 10 years or the item's lifespan. And at the end of the display time, the plaque rights will be available for renewal based on the current fee schedule if the item is not worn or replaced. So.
Mr. Tressi, I have a question. Do you know how much they go for in the community, the school, by chance? You don't? You come- I'm sorry.
I do know that when we did them in Little Italy at the Alda House, we sold 1,000 bricks for $100 apiece. And our cost was $25 to have it created. So we made $75 per brick. And it's still there, and it'll always be there.
Right.
I have 2 other bricks downtown like Mrs. Sabetta, and it was a little more costly, but it is what it is.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Here's my other, Sean said that if you get to, maybe we'll lower the price. Well, that's impossible.
Right, because everybody else
Because
paid
you
for it.
spend $250, now I'm gonna spend $100, you're gonna get mad.
Right.
So either you leave it, or you go right to $100 today.
When did you pay $100 for that brick?
Yeah.
When?
7, 8 years ago. The cost of creating the brick hasn't changed that much.
But that's a good
You wanna
point. You
put this
can't
on
lower
first
it.
reading?
Yeah, you can't lower it.
You can't lower it. Mm-mm.
Can't lower it.
Once you set the price, it has to be the
It
price.
has to be.
Diane?
Yes.
Kathy was just saying that the Historical Society, the brick is $40.
I think, yeah. Mrs. Tressi?
So Ms. Talbot is just saying it was $40, but, and I get that the bricks at, in Little Italy and even at Jacobs Field were maybe 100, and we have an 8x8 also that Jim got as a gift for, and basically the cost was like $150 for that big one. But I know, I mean, they were doing a fundraiser too, but they knew that they had bigger areas. They were doing an area that was, you know, twice, maybe twice the size. So they were going to make it up in volume versus this small area that we're doing. That's,
The difference, yeah.
that's probably the difference. If we could do, it would be great if we could do all the way around that circle instead of just that rectangular area. And then maybe you
We'd make
could
it up.
lower the price and sell more versus that high price and not selling enough to fill that area. I don't know if that makes any sense, but.
Yeah, it does.
And they would be pretty if they were around that circle and around that flagpole, and then you have benches that are right there, you know, the wood benches, instead of that oblong or whatever kind of space you're using.
I think with the circle, you lose, because of the circular, you lose a lot of paver, you have a lot of
The
partial
ends.
bricks. Yeah, where in this one, there's very few partial
Yeah,
bricks.
but you could probably do something to, I'm sure Mr. Trotta from Level Heads can think about how to do that edge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like it.
What?
No,
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, we are
I
agreeing
like
with you.
agreement.
We're agreeing.
I'm glad you all agree with me, no. No, but I mean, I think it would be prettier, a prettier placement if you did it round, you had the pole, the
All I
clock
was-
in the middle.
Yeah, I think it
All
would
I
be.
would say is that I actually thought that that's what we were gonna do, and I talked to Chris about that, and he said, no, he wanted to do it this way.
He wanted
thinks
to do it this way.
This is
But
the
I
way to
think
do
that
it.
if this is something that we all kind of would like to see, then we need to go back to Chris and tell him.
So
this is-
is $250, you think, too steep of a price to remember a loved one? If you're honoring a loved one?
I think it is, for our residents. I think I'd rather see you do the whole circle and sell them a little bit
Sell
less
more.
expensive, and try to make it up in the volume. I think that's a good idea, to at least promote it, see what kind of feedback you get.
And I also believe that when Mr. Trotta spoke about this, he said we could only sell 400 bricks. When I first brought this to council, for it to be like a council kind of fundraiser thing, he said, well, we can only sell 400, because he only wanted to give us that little area. But FYI, it's our area, not his.
Yeah, we
And
went
so
up to
he could
600.
really design that.
So we made it longer on both sides, so we're up to close to 600
Yeah,
on the bricks.
but I think it would be prettier in a circle, all around that whole circle.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Now, on
Mrs.
that
Sabetta.
circle.
Can you put that back up, Sean?
I said yes.
No, she said yes.
Oh, okay, I thought you said no.
Can you put that picture back up, the circle?
So on this circle, do you plan on putting benches? Because you don't want to put a bench on top of somebody's paver. You-
right here.
Where is it? There's a bench there in front, in that other square?
Here and
Okay,
here.
so,
So what's on the other half of the circle?
Concrete, right?
I believe that, right here you're talking about?
Yeah,
I think this is a bed.
Oh.
This is a sidewalk that's walking through here on the way to the playground.
are there other areas if we sell more than the 600 that you're thinking?
I'm sorry?
Are there other areas if we sell more that you're thinking to put these? Or are you thinking this would just be this space?
If we sold all these bricks, we could find another area to
I think you'll sell them.
Diane?
Maybe we should, Mrs. Tracy.
But Sean, you say that, except that land, wherever you would want to go as the second location, that would have to be primed. And if it's already done,
You'd have to do some work.
we'd have to then take it apart and then redo the concrete, and so that would be even more costly than just keeping it all in one area. You know, when you go down to Jacobs Field, they were all in one area, so you could walk around, and they even had a directory and told you like where your sign, where your brick was. But I think it would be prettier if you did all the bricks and maybe did the greenery, the foliage around the edge where you're saying that the bricks won't fit.
Why don't we, Mike, Mr. Balestra,
I was
put
gonna
on
say,
first reading?
Can we maybe table and get some input from,
We'll just put on first reading. That sound good?
well, yeah, we can put on first reading too.
First reading.
Get some input from Mr. Trotta. Go on and see if we could just widen that or have some other design to utilize that area more.
Just so I understand, so we're not happy with the price, or we're not happy with the amount, or both?
I'd say both.
You want more bricks, and you want $40 bricks?
No,
No.
no.
Mrs. Tressi had her hand up, I'm sorry.
Never mind.
Forget it? Okay, Mr. Monaco.
Sean, it seems to me like if you do a round installation like that, there's a lot of cutting and possibly a lot of waste.
Yep.
Is there any way that you could do maybe a square so there would be probably no cutting at all and you could have possibly more bricks to sell?
We do have squares that you could purchase. It's the double-sized brick, the 8x8.
I mean, do the shape.
Oh, do the shape of a square.
Square.
Instead of doing
Yeah,
circle and you be cutting all the way around, if you have a square, there may be no cutting and you could have more.
We could find a square, it just wouldn't be by the flagpole and the clock and the benches. That seems like a nice location to put it. I think that's, Chris is, he's got a,
But again, there's a lot of cutting and you'd be wasting a lot of bricks. that
well,
you-
certainly not what we're proposing. There's very little, it's a slight bend, so there are some cuts, but very few, probably 85% of the bricks will be used. In a circle, you're gonna have, you're right, probably, I don't know, 70% will be able to be utilized. It's just a guess, but much less than the other way, I agree. Is there a number that this council feels more comfortable with?
$100.
$100?
Oh, they'll go like, they'll be gone.
They'll be gone. They'll be gone in a minute. Yeah, you won't make much money.
We won't make any money.
What?
No, we
What
won't
a-
make any.
What?
But that's fine, do you not?
What's a reasonable compromise?
Can I-
Put on first reading. Mayor, I'm sorry.
I mean, make it $100 if you just want an opportunity for residents to display a name in memory of and the city not make any money on it. That's an option too.
We're still making money on it though, right?
Mr. Balestra?
I think we were still making money on it, weren't they, about $25 a brick?
What was the cost of the bricks?
They are,
But we're
I guess
raising
you have
it
to.
10 times the amount.
What's that?
10 times the amount right now is the cost. Over our cost.
Okay.
So we're still making, you still make a pretty good profit even at 150 or something like that.
What's it cost to put it in?
Well, that's what we asked
Yeah,
for before.
they don't have that, but it's, it's concrete, it's the curbs, it's the mud mat, it's the installation, it's the cutting and, installing. But, we were just looking at a way to make a nice fundraiser,
I understand
But,
that.
I'm
Madam Chair.
not disagreeing that 250 and 500 are, big chunks of money. All I would say is, is $250, is that worth it to recognize someone for a long, long time?
I just think for the majority of our residents, it may be a little too
Steep, I think it's too steep.
Is
just thinking-
$200,
Why don't you,
I mean, do we have to go
Mayor?
down to $100?
if you're gonna put this on first reading, get the costs. Divide the cost by the amount of bricks that are gonna go in. You're gonna know our cost.
We just
And
don't know
then,
how many bricks we're gonna sell.
I would do it for all of them and find out if potentially, if we sold all of them, this is the cost to put them in, this is the, the cost per brick. And then you have what it's costing the city, and then council can make their mind up on how much they want to make per brick.
Mrs. Tracy.
And may I ask why you did the brochure before even, like, you did the brochure and then you brought it to council tonight? Maybe we should have discussed all of this and then did the brochure.
It's not out. This is for your blessing. No one has seen this but you.
Oh, no one has
It's not
seen
on
it.
It's
Oh,
nowhere.
okay.
It's
Oh, I
just
was
kind of
gonna
trying to give
say.
you a nice presentation.
It's
Yeah.
on first
Oh,
reading.
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was something that's
All right.
already been passed out then.
Yeah, no.
All right, it's on first reading. If you have ideas or thoughts for Mr. Ward or Mr. Trotta, please make sure you email them or call them within the next 2 weeks so they can research it. Thank you. So this evening, we don't have any ordinances, so we're going to move to motions. Motion A, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A motion to approve the recommendation by the Public Works and Services Committee and the city engineer to solicit bids for the 2023 road program to include Cordova Road, Indiana Avenue, Mayfield Ridge Road, Monterey Drive, Queens Park Avenue, Summit Drive, and Valley Vista Drive at an estimated cost of $3,700,000.
Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta,
Second.
second by Mr. DeJong. This was a recommendation by Public Works and Service Committee and one city engineer to move forward to solicit for bids for the 2023 road program. This committee chose these streets per the recommendation from our engineer. Mr. Balstrea.
I guess I have to just address Mr. Juni on this. There's another street, Joe, Maplewood. I think it comes up off of Cordova in that whole section of roads. I couldn't find that we included that. Is there a Maplewood that comes?
It's on the other side.
No, what's the street that comes up from Cordova to Mayfield? Right by Arbor
There
Court?
is a Maplewood that's 200 feet that we have, and then it becomes a private street. Comes right off of Sound Center. There's a light there,
Yeah,
too.
it comes off some center.
But it's a private road, basically, and it goes through the
Oh,
apartments.
that's private?
And
That goes back there?
Once it goes back to the apartments.
That's their road? Okay,
Yeah.
never mind, okay, thanks. I just want to make sure we weren't missing anything.
Okay. Are there any questions? Mr. DeJong?
No questions. Just please keep us apprised of these bids coming in, and just to make sure that we get this completed this year. Please.
Sure. It's my goal to be here at the next meeting for award. We're going to open bids and bring them right to you. Yep.
Mr. Cheney, can I ask you a question? Are these bids going to be, what type of curbs over there? The roll curb or the regular curb?
Straight curb.
Straight.
We're replacing all of them over there in that whole area, Queens Park and Cordova.
Okay,
We're cutting them out. All the aprons and the curbs are coming out. We're resurfacing the middle and replacing the curbs and aprons.
okay. On all these streets?
And that whole neighborhood over there, Mayfield Ridge had their curbs replaced the last time it was done, so you don't need them on there. And Summit is not 100%, but we're going to replace the curbs that need it. Again, they have straight curbs. They don't have rolled curbs there, so they don't need to change the style.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Tracy?
Mrs. Fagan, are we okay with $3,700,000 for roads?
We are okay with that, yes.
And are we going to do sidewalks when on this, in that area?
Yes.
While we're doing the
While we're there, we
road?
have sidewalks included as well, correct.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, any further questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJong.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, motion A has been approved. Moving to motion B, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to approve the recommendation by the Public Works and Services Committee and the city engineer to solicit bids for the 2023 sidewalk program at an estimated cost not to exceed $400,000. The following streets will be included: Adena Lane, Annandale Road, Ashcraft Drive, Beam Road Drive, Bonnie Lane, Cantwell Drive, Drayton Drive, East Minor Road, Houston Drive, Fulham Drive, Gladwin Drive, Golden Gate Boulevard, Jackie Lane, Kingswood Drive, Larchmont Drive, Maplewood Road, Orchard Heights Drive, Ridgeberry Boulevard, Stafford Drive, West Minor Road, Enfield Drive, Windsor Drive, and Windsor Circle.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta,
Second.
second by Mr. Belstraya. This is part of the 2023 sidewalk program, and you heard all the sidewalks in the city streets that will be repaired. Is there anything further, Mr. Belstraya, you would like to?
No, just what I iterated earlier, that this was amended with the dollar amount and the 3 added streets of Enfield, Windsor, and Windsor Circle that weren't on your original agenda. So go off the new agenda.
Okay. Any further questions? Mr. DeJohn?
Yes, are they going to fix the sidewalks on Cordova, Indiana Avenue, when they do all that construction over there? Reconstruction, I should say.
That's in the other bid? That won't be part of this bid? It'll be
No,
part of the
no,
whole
it will
bid.
be part of that other bid?
Correct. Correct.
Because I see some streets on here that have already been done.
They were paved already, and we didn't do the
Correct. Yeah,
sidewalks.
that's what I meant,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, we're catching up here, so.
Mr. Monaco?
Question for Mr. Chuni. What kind of guidelines are we using in repairing or replacing the sidewalks? They have to be half inch uneven, multiple cracks. When do we decide to replace them?
All of the above. It's a tripping hazard, or if it's settled and there's water settling on it, multiple cracks. We basically walk the street and make that decision as we go. So, and we came up with quantities for each street, and then we put it together for bids. But the tripping hazard, I think, was 3/4 of an inch, or is it don't quote me. Maybe a half
Half
inch.
inch.
Yeah, I think it was a half.
And do you have knowledge of how many square feet approximately square yard we need to replace?
Not off the top of my head. We have it by street. That's how we're bidding it.
Okay.
Because we walked it and measured it, and we have it by street.
But you have that?
How many square
Is
foot?
that possible to have that?
Until we get to $400,000.
Yeah, right.
Oh, so when you get to that, that's it, you stop?
And again, I can't predict the price, but I kind of have an idea what it's going to be, but, and then once we get the price, we might have to cut back, or we might be able to add. if you
So
ask me.
you may not be able to do all these streets?
Depending on the price, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. Or I can come back to you and ask for more money, right?
Yeah, if you don't get finished.
Mrs. Tressi?
Mr. Chuni, will you put on your radar, there's a sidewalk that goes from Chelmsford to Crestwood. It's just like a little path that cuts through. People walk their dogs through there. And there are some sidewalks that, they're not in bad condition, but they're so low that you literally have to walk in the wet grass not to get your entire shoe wet. That's how deep the water
accumulates
is.
over
It's a,
there.
it's a public walk?
Yes.
Public
Yes.
sidewalk,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take a look, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Not familiar
between-
with it, so I'll go take a look.
Okay, yeah, it's just a path that goes between Chelmsford and Crestwood.
Okay.
And then there's a second one,
up the
correct.
street, too.
Yeah. The city owns it,
An easement to that, okay.
and it's just full of water. So you have to walk in the grass,
Yikes.
which is less water, but you can't walk on the sidewalk.
Ask Chuck or Tony, they'll tell you exactly.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
I'll take a look.
Madam President?
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes, there's also very low sidewalks on my street. Matter of fact, the house next to the mayor's is very low, and when it rains, it fills up with water and mud. You can't really walk through it. So do they look for that?
That would be on the list, yes. We do look for that, yes.
You do look for the low
Yes.
sidewalks?
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank
You
you.
could tell if it's not raining, if it's all silted up, because the silt would be on there, because it doesn't drain out, you know.
Correct, yeah.
You're on the schedule.
I'd explain where it is.
Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Tracy.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Motion B has now been approved. Okay, moving to new business and comments from council. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to address Mr. Natalie's issue about the contract for pest control in the city. We were informed after we approved that contract that they'll only come out to the house one time for one issue. If you call them back for that same issue again, then you will be charged. And I'd like to ask Mrs. Fagan to send him the contract so he has a chance to look at that. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I did check, it had been running on the city's, on the front page of the city's website, and it must have just come down this past week with updates, but it had been out there since that conversation. So we'll make sure we get that out to them.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Mr. Mayor.
Right, and you're absolutely right. If for one time for one specific problem, and if the resident does not correct the problem, which is attracting the animals, then they will be charged. But if they do that and the animal is still giving them issues, then there's no charge. But if they will give the resident options and instructions on how to prevent it, and if that's not done, then there's a charge if they come back.
Mr. DeJohn.
Does it actually say that in the contract, though?
Yeah, yes.
I didn't read that in the contract, so.
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay. Madam President, Mr. Natalie would like to ask a question. Can we have him come up and ask that question?
We have to reopen the public portion. So do I have a motion to reopen public portion?
We don't answer questions.
You can
That's what I'm saying. We don't get into a dialogue, though, so he can ask all he wants, but he's not going to get an answer.
Yeah, I'll move we can
Okay,
reopen it.
moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Balestria. Note that you can just come up and ask the question, but there's, roll call on the motion, sorry.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Natalie. Natalie, I'm sorry. Tired.
I don't really have a question, so don't get nervous. The issue is when that contract was presented, it had that flaw in it, and so you're telling me that flaw was never corrected. So we signed it as is, and I thought the whole dialogue was to go back to the vendor and say, get that out of there. That's not feasible. I don't cause the problem. The animals are running wild. So if it's in there that if that's the case, I mean, if I have a bird feeder, yeah, that's an issue. I've got neighbors on both sides with open porches. Do they have to then board up their porches so that the animals don't go under them? I just need some guidance because I'm telling you, they are everywhere.
Thank you.
Can I? All right.
Mr. Murphy.
It is in the contract. It's in the contract as signed. When the animal warden comes out and determines there is a problem, he will tell the property owner what they can do so that there will be no further problems. If the property owner does not do that, then the property owner will be charged for the second visit. If the property owner does do that and there is still a problem, then the city will pick up the tab for the second visit. And that's in the contract.
But the problem is not my problem.
It's the property owner's problem. I'm not saying it's yours.
But I'm the one that's calling because the nuisance is on my property.
Then you've got to do something to rectify the nuisance.
So who contacts my neighbor to rectify the problem?
Your problem?
Yes.
Not my problem.
It's not his
I have a wild animal that's eating my yard or doing whatever, tearing it up, but it's coming from a nuisance at the neighbor's property.
Then the company will tell you what to do to alleviate the nuisance on your property.
But it's, Okay, I understand.
It's on your
What you're
property, it's your nuisance.
But if the damage is on the property, but if it's.
Then, yeah,
So,
Okay.
it's,
Mrs. Tressi, did you want to,
no, I was just going to say, it's the neighbor who has.
was the open,
Who has the open,
porch.
open porch or open deck.
who
That's-
will be charged if it's their nuisance.
Right, but
Right.
the animal goes to Mr. Natale's. We had another issue on another street where the family, their yard is impeccable, but the house next door, I think it was 2 or 3 women that lived there, and they had bird feeders, so they kept throwing the food out at the rental property, and our resident kept complaining because she said, I'm getting all the animals, they're feeding the birds
And
next
they will
door.
be cited for feeding the birds.
So you have to call the building department and they'll go and cite them? So you have to have somebody cite the neighbor. So that's what Mr. Natale is saying. Someone
Right.
has to cite his neighbor. It's not, he doesn't have the problem of the open fence or
His
the
neighbor
bird
is
feeder.
causing a problem for
Yes,
you, correct?
Exactly. That is,
You know, who's to say? I mean, there's raccoons that live in hollow trees somewhere on the street. I don't know where they're coming from, they don't have tags on them. But I've got, raccoons in the yard. I had groundhogs last year, family of 4. So I called the first time, they trap it and they get rid of it. The second time, they wanted to charge me $300.
They're wild animals. How are they nuisances? That's what I want to know. I mean, they're eating, so you need to protect your plants. Or don't plant them.
okay.
There's ways to
So-
protect your plants.
Is there any other, or Mrs. Tressi?
yeah, I have, at our safety and transportation meeting, I spoke to the chief and Captain Paquette about a resident who called about the traffic issues by Dairy Queen, with the cars stacking on Mayfield Road and on Iroquois. And I believe the chief or captain went, they were going to move the sign. There's a sign on Iroquois. They were going to move it back so that people coming down the street would be able to see, stop, and so that people could turn the corner going north onto Iroquois. And then they were going to possibly address where you exit a right turn only so that you're not backing up the traffic on Iroquois. So I wanted the resident to know that I spoke to the captain and the chief, and we were going to put a no parking sign near the corner and address his concerns.
Good, okay. All right, Mr. Monaco?
Thank you. Question for Mr. Chuni. We had a couple nice days, and the concrete contractors have been out doing some repairs and installing new driveways in our area. And I was asked by some residents when their issues are going to be corrected on Marshfield, Mayfield, Long Ridge, and their general area there.
That's in the bid with the road program. It's bid as an alternate, and we will see what the prices are when they come in. And it's going to be completed with that project, is the plan. 1,900 feet of curb. I had 11 aprons, you added another one, so whatever that is, those will be taken care of.
You have a time frame? I mean,
Well, I hope to award the job, bring it to council for award next meeting. It's the first meeting in May. They'll probably get started in June. Yeah.
soon? Okay,
So
thank you.
that portion is not included in tonight's road program. It's an addition to, correct?
Correct. In addition to the 3.7? Correct, yes.
And then who's going to pay for that? Like,
We wanted to see what the costs were, and we have to talk about that, right? So
okay,
I want to bid it and see what the numbers come in at.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Zavada, second by Mr. DeJohn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are now adjourned.
To stay longer?